least one block. You might need a second if you are thinking balance might be a issue for you. There might be some things where having a second block is more stabilizing. And then I have 2 light to medium weights. And that's all that we need tonight. Unless you need a blanket for your knees, as usual, we will be on our knees for part of this. So to just have a blanket in case you need it might be helpful. We are going to start lying on our backs. You can have your weights off towards the front of your mat. And we will use the block, not right away, but we will use the block as we're down on the ground. So have it someplace close by. And we're going to come to lie on our backs. If your chin is facing up towards the sky because of lots of tightness in your upper back, you might use a block or a blanket underneath your head, just to allow your neck to rest long rather than in that extended or chin towards the sky ceiling thing. So start with your knees bent, feet wider than your hips, and just take a moment to allow your knees to rest in towards each other. And bring your hands with the webbing of your thumbs on the sides of your rib cage. Your thumbs will rest in your low back area, so just below your rib cage and that more meaty section. And then your fingertips will rest just on the sides of the front of your abdomen. If this is not comfortable because of your shoulders, you might cross your hands and just rest your fingers on the sides of your abdominal wall. And just start to breathe normally. So at first, we're not doing anything to change our breath. Hopefully breathing in and out just through your nose. And as you breathe normally, just start to notice how much of the region underneath your hands, your thumbs, your fingers, notice what parts are moving and what parts are still. And again, right now, we're not trying to shift or change anything. We're just acknowledging, noticing, recognizing how and where the breath moves. And then shift your awareness more to where the fingers are resting on the front kind of side region of your abdominal wall. And see if you can feel the movement there. And first, we're not changing anything. We're just recognizing what is moving. You might compare side to side. And then if you don't feel that region of your body moving as your breath, as you inhale, consciously try to fill that area. And not straight forward where your belly button is, but more out to where the fingers are resting. So just below the rib cage, out towards the side and slight front of your belly. And as you start to bring movement into this region, you might feel that space where the webbing of your thumb is resting on the very side of your waist, right at the bottom of your rib cage, you may or may not feel that the breath is moving there. And then try to consciously breathe out into the webbing of your thumb. So it's more of an outward than a forward movement. And as you try to bring the breath into that area, You may feel that the space underneath your thumbs, which again are right below the rib cage and on the back sides of your abdominal wall. You might start to feel that region move. And if you don't, can you consciously try to breathe kind of not only sideways, but side and back? And then just allow your entire hand to rest on the bottom of your rib cage. Separate the knees and walk your feet in just a little bit. And we're going to start with some pelvic tilt. So as you exhale, curl your pubic bone up towards your navel and push your low back region into the floor. And as you inhale, move your pubic bone towards your tailbone and feel your low back lift off the floor. So exhaling, curling pubic bone towards navel, rounding the lowest part of your spine. And inhaling pubic bone towards tailbone, lifting the lower part off. And just allow this movement to move with your breath. And notice your hands on the bottom of your rib cage. Can you continue this movement, moving just the pelvis and the lowest part of your spine, and monitoring how much movement is happening under your hands, and see if you can not allow any movement of the rib cage. So isolating this movement just to the pelvis and the lowest part of your lumbar spine. We're starting to bring some movement into just one segment, the lowest segment of our spine, the lumbar region, avoiding the rib cage moving right now. Good. Take a break. Grab your block. And we're going to hold the block on the short, narrow ends, not by gripping the block, but by holding the block with the knuckles of your palm. And then you're going to keep your elbows above your shoulders and bend the elbows to 90 degrees so that the block is right over your forehead. And you're going to squeeze in with the palms of your hands, stretching your fingers long and squeezing your elbows in. So we're going to go back to that pelvic tilt, but we're going to start to move into a bridge pose. So you will start to move the rib cage, but not before the pelvis. You're going to move it with the pelvis. So as you exhale, start to curl pubic bone towards navel, and then lift the hips as high as you can. And then as you inhale, one vertebrae at a time, rock down. Good. Exhale, curl pubic bone towards navel, lift the lowest part of your spine up through the middle of your thoracic spine, so the middle of your rib cage, up one vertebrae at a time, and peel it back down. And we're going to do this 3 more times, just isolating the lowest part of the spine. Each time you lift, can you peel one vertebrae up at a time instead of lifting it all at once? Not that lifting it all at once is wrong. It's just not what we're doing today. We're trying to mobilize each segment of the lumbar spine. Good. Keep your hips down. Keep the block where it is and the elbow is. And next time as you exhale, start to look with your eyes between your knees. Keep your chin tucked. And as you exhale, curl up. And then roll back down. Exhale, roll up. Inhale, roll back down. So because we are targeting, keep doing this, moving the lowest part of the spine, we are curling the low back into the floor this time to crunch up. So we're trying to push the lumbar spine down to lift up into that crunch. One more time. Good. And we're going to alternate. So with the next exhale, curl the lowest part of your low back off, lift one vertebrae at a time into that bridge pose. Curl down as you inhale, one vertebrae at a time. And then as you exhale, crunch the upper back and maybe bring the block between your knees. Bend the elbows, curl back down. Exhale, curl, lower back up, hips off. Inhale, curl, lower back down. Exhale, round upper back. Reach the block between the knees. Bend the elbows. Roll back down. 3 more, alternating between lower back into the hip bridge. Upper back into the lower back, into that crunch with the reach. Keep the elbows shoulder distance apart. Each time, keep pressing the palms of your hands into the block. And we've got one more. Roll up one vertebrae at a time, hip bridge. Roll up one vertebrae at a time, maybe coming all the way up this time. Pull the block towards your chest. One vertebrae at a time, roll back down. Good. We're going to take the block. This time we're going to bend the elbows and take the block closer to the floor over your head. Press your right foot down into the floor. This time, instead of peeling the spine up, this time we're keeping our rib cage and our pelvis moving at the same time. So stiffen the spine so the spine moves all at once. Exhale, push through your right foot, lift your hips off the ground. Inhale, roll back down. Draw the right knee in. As you exhale, crunch and twist to the left. Reach the block beyond your left leg. Inhale, block goes over your head. Left foot comes to the ground. Exhale, press the hips up. Inhale, lower back down, lift the left knee. Exhale, crunch and twist to the right. Reach the block beyond your right thigh. Block comes over your head. Right foot comes down. Exhale, lift up. Single leg bridge. Inhale, lower, lift the right leg. Exhale, twist to the left, reach the block beyond the left thigh. Inhale, back to your back. Drop the left foot. Exhale, lift the hips. Good. Inhale, lower. Exhale, crunch, reach the block off to the right. Good. Over your head. We're doing 3 more each side, alternating between that single leg hip bridge and then the twist with a crunch. We move through these, efforting on the exhale. So lifting into the hip bridge with an exhale, reaching and lifting into the crunch with an exhale. Block stays over your head each time you're doing the hip bridge. Arms go straight each time you're doing the crunch. Last time, crunching over to the right. Leave the block over your head. Drop the feet to the ground. Take the arms wide and windshield wiper your knees side to side. So that pressing in with the palms and keeping the elbows shoulder distance apart helps to stabilize the shoulder girdle. We're working the spine in both flexion and rotation. So we're still on what we've been working on this month, kind of bringing them all into one flow. So we're going to bring the block back to that same position, elbows over your shoulders, allowing the block to move towards your head, but keeping them shoulder distance apart. We're going to lift one knee at a time, bringing them over your pelvis, over your hips. We're going to squeeze the hands into the block. And as you exhale, you're going to lower both legs at the same time to the left. Inhaling back to center. and exhaling legs to the right. So I'm going to shift the direction. You're not taking them all the way. You're trying to keep elbows shoulder distance apart. So elbows are not wide. They're shoulder distance apart. And we're using that stabilization of pressing the hands into the block to keep everything from the ribs up still as we use our obliques, our deep core muscles, to help to rotate just the lower body, moving all in one chunk. Good. Bring the feet back down to the ground. You're going to take the block in your right hand. Extend the wrist so that you can place the block, the flat, wide part of the block, flat on your right palm. You're going to take the left hand out to the side, not T to the body, not right beside the body, but halfway between that T and straight beside the body. So at like a 45-degree angle down from the 90, so closer to your thighs. And then again, one leg at a time, lift it over your hips. We're going to push the block up straight towards the sky as we rotate up onto our left elbow. So it might help to watch this once just so you can see what it looks like. So with the exhale, I'm going to gaze towards my left hand and I'm going to rock and lift up onto my left elbow. The block is continuing to stay right over my right shoulder, and my chest is facing straight down towards my left thumb. To roll back, we keep the block where it is, and we just roll and let it come back down. Good. So we're going to do that 10 times. So again, left hand out 45 degrees, knees stacked over your hips. With an exhale, start to gaze towards your left thumb and come up onto your left elbow, chest towards your left thumb, block right over your shoulder. Good. Rock back down. 2, chest towards them. The top leg, the right leg comes behind you. Your left knee is coming up right in line with your hip. So both knees are bent at 90 degrees. One rest on the floor behind you, one rest right out in front of you, in line with your hip. Push the right hand towards the sky and aim your chest straight down towards your left thumb to stack. Come up and stay there. Take your left hand out slightly and lift up onto your left hand. So pause for a second and look, left wrist and left shoulder, then right shoulder, and then you'll have the block still on your hand. What we want to avoid is this punching out of the shoulder forward. So from this angle, we don't want it to look like this. We want it to stay stacked so that makes a straight line. So block on the palm of your left hand. You're going to twist and pass the block down towards your left thumb. And then you have to kind of rotate your fingers to point back, stacking it above your shoulder. Notice that it did not pop that left shoulder forward. And then again, pass it down. And then let it go up. So the left shoulder is really not moving much at all. This right shoulder is where all the movement, and then you do have some rotation in your spine and your rib cage. So keep pushing the floor away with your left hand and see, can you keep that left arm and left shoulder still as you rotate and move the right arm. Good. Bend the elbow. We're going to take the block. We're going to place the block underneath the edge, and I'm going to rotate so you can see me. You're going to place it under the inner edge of your right foot. So the inner arch is on the block. Right knee is in line with your right hip. Left knee is in line with your left hip. And both knees are bent at 90 degrees. So you don't have this short, tight angle. You have more of that open angle in your knee. We're going to lean forward out over our left inner thigh. You can be up on your elbows or up on your hands, kind of depending on your flexibility in your left hip. So you're going to start to lift and lower the right foot off the block. So just lift and then tap. Lift and then tap. Lift and then tap. Lift and hold. And just see, can you try to lift your left heel further off the block without lifting the right knee off the block, off the floor? So you might feel some interesting sensation in this area of your outer right hip. Lower it down, walk your hands up. And then you're going to bring your left elbow down on the ground in line with your left hip. So now you're open and you're going to lift your right knee off the floor, bring it back down, and then lift your right foot off the block. So lift the knee, lift the block. And if you notice here, I'm not moving my upper body at all. I'm trying to keep it still. I'm trying to keep my hips or my pelvis still as I just move this leg bone inside this right hip socket. Good. Go ahead and lift off your left elbow. I'm going to move so I'm facing you. You can kind of stay where you are. We're now going to bring the right foot closer to your hip. And the left foot now is going to round around your right knee. We've done this before, so we're just gonna, you've seen this before. A lot of this stuff you've seen before. So we're gonna use the block out in front of us and we're gonna lift up onto both of our shins. Tuck your right toes under, and if you look between my thighs, you can see that my foot is kind of in, so it's not out to the side. It's kind of between the two knees behind my hips. Take the block. And again, palms of the hands, so we're not holding the block. We're trying to work on that shoulder stabilization by just holding the block and pressing the block firmly between the knuckles of your hands. You're going to start to reach your hips back towards your heels and reach the block towards your right thigh. And then, and as you come up, you're going to sweep it up to the left. So reach and twist. Touch the top of your right thigh or right knee. And then as you lift up, you're going to sweep it off to the left. Sit the hips back, kind of reaching them around. So rotating the spine and then lifting up. Rotating the pelvis and the spine, lifting up. And I started to grip the sides of my block and I was trying to press my palms to hold the block steady between my palms instead of relying on gripping it. Good. Sweep it back, lift it up. Take the block, place it off towards the front of your mat. And sweep the left leg behind you, and you're going to come with your right foot forward. So left foot as we're coming into that half kneeling position. Take the block, place it on the bottom of your rib cage so that the top edge of the block is right at the bottom of your rib cage. Because we're going to use this as feedback to roll over the block. So you're going to start to shift your hips back, Roll over the block, lift up, and then twist towards your right thigh. Shift forward, roll over the block, and shift your hips back, lift up, and twist. If you feel more steady with the back toe tucked, you can tuck the back toe, twist, and I'm kind of using the block again to block the bottom of my rib cage so that I can twist my spine with the feedback of the block. Good. I'm going to face you for this second part so that you can see better what we're going to move this into. So you're going to take the block back how we have been holding it. So not gripping, but pressing. You're going to twist towards your right thigh, reach the block straight out, and then round, like you're rounding over the block, to move the block towards the floor. Bend the elbows, bring it back to your chest, tuck the back toe, send the hips straight back. Come back up to that tall kneeling, half kneeling, twist, arms straight, and then round the spine to pass the block towards the floor. Come out of that, bend the elbows, take it to your chest, tuck the back toes, send the hips back. 3 more of those. So arms out, twist, round, like you're shoving it towards the floor, bring it back up, elbows bend, sit the hips back. Good. 2 more, arms straight, twist, round, like you're rounding over the block, lift it up, elbows bent, send the hips back. Last time, arms straight, twist, round, push the block towards the floor, bend the elbows, bring it up, send the hips back. Good. So you're facing the front of your mat. We're going to twist. Keep the knee facing the front of the mat. Twist the chest to face the long edge of your mat. Take the block in the palm of your right hand, press it right up towards the sky, bicep towards the ear. Back toe can be tucked under or flat. Flat means you have to stabilize a little bit more. Toes tucked means you feel more stable. So you're going to flex your left hip, twist your spine, look up at the block, touch the floor with your left hand between your foot and your knees. Press it up, face for the long edge of your mat. So twist, hips twist back, look up, twist forward, long edge of the mat. Good, 3 more. So we're working on internal rotation in this right hip. We're rotating the pelvis towards the inner thigh. And we're working on rotation in the spine and mobility in the shoulder. Good. Bend the elbow. Take the block off to the front edge of your mat. Come to hands and knees. Move the block into your low back. So it's not on your rib cage. It's not on your pelvis. It's in that space right between your pelvis and your rib cage. We're going to start just first by just moving the area of the spine that is attached to the block. So you'll notice I'm not rounding my entire spine. I could lose my block by doing this. I'm keeping my rib cage still. And I'm just moving again, like we did on our back at the beginning of class with those pelvic tilts. I'm just moving my lowest part of my lumbar spine and my pelvis. Walk the knees back a little bit and walk the hands forward a little bit. Tuck the toes under, shift as far forward as you can. And as you shift back, lift your right arm beside your right ear. Shift hand to the ground, shift as far forward as you can. Shift back, left arm to ear. So continue to alternate which hand you lift as you move your pelvis back. And start to shift your awareness to your spine. So you want that lowest part of your spine to basically stay as still as possible. So notice where the block is. You don't want it to press into the block, but you also don't want it to pull any further away from the block than it already is. One more with the left hand. Both hands to the ground. Watch for a second. We're not doing downward facing dog. We'd lose the block. We're going into bear pose, which looks like this. So we're testing the same thing. We don't want to feel the area of the spine move any closer or pull any further away from the block. We just want it to stay steady. Lower the knees to the ground. Walk the hands forward and lower down onto your belly. Forehead to the ground. Elbows in line with the ears. Lift your head off the ground. And walk the elbows so they're almost under your shoulders, but not quite. Look between your chest. Peel your lower belly off the floor. Firm the fronts of your thighs, lift your pubic bone off the floor, and then lift your knees off the floor. Knees back down, thighs back down, pubic bone. Stretch the chest forward. So tops of the feet stay flat on the floor for this. So we're not lifting up into a traditional plank. We're lifting up into a plank with the toes pointed, not tucked. So curl. Feel the block still in your lower back as you lift the pelvis. Again, keep the spine and then lift the knees. Lower, thighs, pubic bone, belly, stretch the chest. One more time, tuck the chin, look between the chest, lift the belly. Start to monitor your spine as you lift the pelvis and the knees, thighs, pelvis. Hands stack, forehead on the hands. Shift your hips side to side. Remove the block from your low back and flip over. You're probably going to be facing a different way, but that's okay. Take the block now on your left hand. We're balancing it with the palm flat. Left knee stays bent. Right hand is now 45 degrees away from your body, so we're not at 90. We're down a little bit. We're going to bend both knees above our hips. And we're going to do that rock to elbow prop again. So pushing the block straight up to the sky. Right knee is going to be in line with your pelvis. Left knee is going to sweep to the floor behind you. Chest faces your right thumb. Good. Roll back, then roll up. Roll back. You might start to think of when you roll up that you're rocking your left rib cage toward your left knee. Your chest faces your right thumb at the top to stack the shoulder directly over the elbow instead of that push forward like this. You want to stack and move it back. 3 more. Next time you rock up, stay up and lift up onto your right hand. So check to make sure right shoulder is not pooching forward. Take it back. So straight line. And you're going to sweep. Palm faces up as you touch block to right thumb. And then it sweeps up and fingers point towards your right fingers. And you might find that this is a little bit more awkward on one side versus the other. That's pretty typical. I always feel like we have one shoulder, one hip, one side of everything. It just behaves a little bit more naturally. And we have to think about the other side a little bit more. Remember that right shoulder and arm are basically staying still. Good. Take the block down. Place the block, and I'll face this way so you can see, face the block underneath your inner arch of your right foot. We're going to come forward, reaching our belly out over our right thigh, hands either on the ground or elbow on the ground. And first we're going to move in this position, lifting and lowering the left foot off the back block. And again, you may notice that one side behaves a little bit more like it's a little bit easier. Next time you lift, hold. And continue to think that you're lifting the foot as far away from the block as possible. Again, you might feel some interesting sensation in the outer left hip. It might feel like a cramp. It might be a cramp. Release the foot to the block. Walk your hands up. And now we're going to take right elbow straight out in line with the right hip to the floor. I'm going to start by lifting the left knee, then placing the left knee back down and lifting the foot. And what I don't want to experience is that I'm moving my hips to lift my knee or my pelvis. I don't want to open everything. I want to keep my pelvis still so it's stacked over the right side. And I'm just allowing all of the movement to happen just in the hip joint. So I'm not rocking back to get more movement. I'm just keeping my hand on my hip to kind of feel it, feel still as I move just the hip joint. Good. And go ahead and come back up. I'm going to shift so you can see me from the front. Allow your right arch of your foot to wrap around your left knee and then pull your left heel towards your left hip. I'm going to take the block. You can use it to come up onto your shins, or you can just lift up onto your shins. Have the block out in front of you. Again, we're going to tuck the left foot in. So if I was to look right between my thighs here, you can see my heel there. And then block between the knuckles of your hands. We're going to twist towards your left thigh, touch the block to your left thigh, and then sweep it up and over to the right. Hips shift back as if I was going to sit my left sit bone on my left heel. So we're working again. And just trying to find different ways to work internal rotation in our hips. We're working different ways to find rotation in our spine and mobility with stability, squeezing that block between the knuckles of your hands rather than gripping it to create stability and mobility in our shoulders. Next time you sweep down, stay down. You're going to kick the right foot back underneath and step the left foot forward. Take the block right where the edge, top edge, the long edge of the block is right on the bottom of the rib cage. I'm going to face this way this time so you can maybe see it from a different angle. Tuck the right toes under. We're going to round as we shift our hips back. We're going to lift up, and then we're going to twist towards the left side. Forward. Round your rib cage over the back as you shift your hips back. Come up and twist, using the block to help to pull the rib cage Good, 3 more. Twist. Can you keep the pelvis relatively still as you twist your rib cage and your upper body towards your front leg, your left leg? Last one. And then we got a long arm, so grip it between your knuckles, not with your fingers. Reach the block out in front of you. Twist towards the left, and then round your spine to pass the block towards the floor. Come back up. Twist, bring it in, and shift back. Shift up, arms forward. Twist, round like you're twisting over your block. Lift up, forward, elbows in, shift back. Good. Pass it out in front of you. Squeeze the block between your knuckles as you twist. Round, reach the fingertips towards the floor. Stack it back up. Elbows in. Shift the hips back. One more time. Shift it out. Twist. Round like you're curling over the block. Pass the block towards the floor. Lift it up. Shift it out in front of you. Elbows bend. Tuck the toes. Shift it back. Good. We're going to turn by flipping the right foot behind you. Take the block in your right hand, bicep beside your ear. So from the backside seeing this, you can see that I twist, look up. I'm sorry, it's the other hand. It's in your left hand. Hand plants between your foot and your knee. Look up towards the block, come back up, face the long edge of your mat. Look up towards your left hand, hips shift back towards your right foot, shift back up. 3 more. So you can see that I am flexing. I'm moving my hips back towards my right heel and rotating my pelvis towards my left thigh. Good. Elbow bends, block down to the floor, come to hands and knees. Bring the block into your low back, between your pelvis and your ribs. You're going to move just the low back. So exaggerating how much of that extension of allowing the block to sink down can you get without collapsing the shoulders and the rib cage, and how much rounding can you get without moving your upper back and head. So just isolating it to lumbar spine. And then find somewhere in between, which is neutral. Walk your hands forward and knees back. Shift forward so that your wrist or your shoulders are above your hand, not your wrist. And this time as you shift back, you're going to reach your right hand outside of your left knee. The upper back is going to twist, but where the block isn't moving. Hand to the floor, shift shoulders forward of your fingers. As you shift back, twist just your upper body. So how do you know if it's your upper body? You have your block there to help you feel. Do you feel the block lean as you twist? Or can you just twist the upper rib cage to reach the hand outside of the opposite knee? Good. Bring both hands to the ground. Tuck your toes under. Hover your knees about an inch above the floor. Shift forward. Shift as far back as you can. So you're going forward and back. Maybe the knees bend. Yes, your shoulders will be above your fingertips, not your wrists. So we're working that wrist extension. Lower the knees down. Point the toes, reach the hips back, and take a little break. Reach the fingertips towards your toes. So allow the heads of the shoulders to fall towards the floor. And shift the hips side to side. You'll feel a slight rounding of your low back in this position. You'll feel the pelvis kind of roll around the tops of the leg bones. Remove the block. So we're going to place the block off towards the front of the mat. The weight should be off towards the front of the mat as well. Come to hands and knees. Tuck your toes under. We're going to hover the knees and then lift into bear pose. So knees stay bent. Hover the knees. Lift into bear pose. Hover the knees. Lift into bear pose and then shift to downward facing dog. So knees can be still bent, but instead of forward looking between your thumbs, your head is now between your arms and you can gaze between your toes. Walk your feet towards your hands. Walk them wide. Outer edges of your feet in line with your mat. Bend your knees. Grab your opposite elbow and hang. And then knees stay bent, roll up one vertebrae at a time. We're going to grab the handheld weights. If you don't have weights, you don't need weights. You can just do this with no weights in your hands. So we're going to start with our feet slightly wider than hip distance apart. You can be at the front of the mat, but I'm facing you so that you can see me better. We're going to step our right foot back. It's about an inch behind your left foot. You're going to lift your heel off the ground. Slight bend of your left knee. Big bend of your right knee. We're going to lower down so that the spine is parallel to the ground and the weights are just hanging in our hands towards the floor. We're going to start by moving nothing but the arms. So row your right elbow straight back towards the sky and then down. Row your left elbow straight back and then down. So you're going to start to exhale as you pull and then exhale as you pull. So try to keep everything else in your body perfectly still as you row one arm and then the other. Left knee is bent, right knee is bent deeper. Push both knees out as if you're pushing them into a band. If you had a band wrapped around your knees. Good. The next time you pull your right elbow back, push your left fist towards the ground and roll your right rib cage towards the bell. And then as you switch, do the opposite. So now you're moving everything. The knees both stay bent. The pelvis is twisting. So from behind, you'll see that my pelvis twists. And my right knee is bending a little deeper as I roll towards my left. Because in order to lift the left rib cage towards the bell, I have to push that knee forward a little bit. Good. Step forward. We're going to step up onto the block with our left foot. I'm going to face you. So your left foot's going to step on the block. We're just holding the bells down beside our thighs and balancing on our left leg. I'm going to reach my right foot forward as I bend my left knee straight over my toes, tap my heel. And then I'm going to take my right foot out to the side, left knee straight over the toes, and then I'm going to step it behind me, left toe, knees over my toes. So forward. The left leg is doing the same thing each time. We're just alternating where we're putting the right foot. So we're going 5 times in each direction. So this is our third. What we're looking for is what's happening with this left knee. We want to aim it over the left toes. What you'll notice is that it wants to sneak in or wants to hike up. So think knee over toe, knee over toe, knee over toe. Stay back with your right foot behind you. Bring the foot to the ground. We did this last week, so step back quite a bit. You might want to watch first. We did this last time, Lisa. This is the one that you love so much. Now we have 2 weights in our hands. We're going to come on our back toe. As we lunge, the opposite knee the knee that's going down, that arm goes forward. So I'm going like this, and then I'm going to balance and switch the arm that comes forward. So as my right foot goes back, my right arm goes forward. You can bend the back arm and lift it to shoulder height. We have 3 more. Step back, lunge, swing, step back, and swing. Good. Come off the block. Right foot steps behind left. Right arm straight up. We're going to slide this left arm down the left leg. And then as you come forward, bell to the shoulder. So from a side view, left knee stays bent. Slide it down your shin. Stack wrist over shoulder as you come up. So this left knee bends and then straighten to stand. Slide the bell down the knee all the way to mid shin. 2 more. And from this side, you're opening, gazing up, face forward. Good. Step forward. Bells right in front of your shoulders. Feet about mat distance apart. Toes turn out slightly. Send the hips back. Slowly lower down into a squat. Drop the bells to the floor. Hands behind your back. Drop your hips. Roll onto your spine. And we're going to rock forward and back. Cross your shins. Come on to hands and knees. 1 time cat-cow full spine. So inhale, arch your spine. Exhale, round your spine. Tuck your toes. Hover your knees. Make sure you're not rounding or hyperextending through your spine. You have that nice long spine. Downward facing dog. Walk the feet forward. Feet mat distance apart, elbows hang. Roll the spine up. Grab your weights. So this time, again, feet are hip distance apart. Left toes are about an inch behind the right toes, but we're still hip distance apart. So we're not way back here, in other words. It's just a slight split stance. Right knee bends. Spine parallel to the floor, long. And row. First, everything stays still. And you're just squeezing the shoulder blade towards the spine to lift the elbow towards the sky. The next time you lift your right hand, twist towards your right, and then twist towards your left. This is where the pelvis starts to move. Right knee stays bent. It stays bent at about the same depth the whole time. Because your pelvis rotates, the left knee will bend a little bit more as you rotate towards your right leg. One more each side. Good. Come on up. We're going to come on to the block. We're going to stand on our right foot this time. Balance. Right knee goes over right toes, tap heel out in front, tap heel to the side, step it slightly behind. Good. Balance. Heel forward, heel out to the side, toe back. So watch. There will be a slight hip hike, but watch how much. Watch your right knee. Make sure it's pointing straight out over your right toes rather than falling in or collapsing out. When you step your foot back this time, keep it back. Step it further back so that you're in a nice lunge stance. As you drop the left knee towards the ground, left hand's going to swing forward, right elbow behind, and then switch hands, come to balance on the block. Step it back, lunge. Step it forward, balance. Step it back, lunge. You're swinging opposite arm forward and back. Two more. Good. Come down. Come off the block. We're coming back into that split stance. Right foot is forward. Left arm at your shoulder. As you glide the bell, you're rotating your chest up towards the weight. And then bring it back to your shoulder. So right knee bends. And then come back up. From the side, you're opening your chest up towards the left as you're rotating the pelvis and the rib cage towards that bell. One more. Good. Bring the blocks to your chest. Step your feet wide. Toes pan out slightly wider than your hips. Bend the knees, squat. Drop the bells off. Hands behind your back. Roll down onto your back. Hug your knees into your chest. Rock forward and back. Rock back. Cross your right ankle over your left knee. Use your right hand to press your right knee open. You might rotate your right ankle a few times in one direction, a few times in the other direction. And then either grab behind your thigh or in front of your shin to pull the knee towards your chest. Keep your ankle crossed over your knee. Drop your left foot to the ground. Take your arms out to the body, T to the body. You're going to twist towards the left, landing your right foot on the ground. Knees continuing to press up towards the sky. Come back to center. Switch your feet. So right foot on the ground, left ankle crosses over your knee. Use your left knee to press your knee open. Rotate the ankle in one direction a few times. And the other way. Grabbing either behind the thigh or in front of the shin, pull your right knee towards your chest. You might use your left elbow to keep your right left hip opening out. Keep the ankle crossed over your knee, right foot to the ground, arms wide. Twist, dropping your left foot to land flat on the ground, right knee continuing to point up towards the sky. Roll back to center. Hug both knees into your chest. Maybe round, bringing your head towards your knees or just rocking your knees side to side. Whatever you feel that your knees or your hips or your spine, whatever you feel movement-wise that your body needs as a final release. We'll take a moment for that. And whenever you're ready, roll to either side, press yourself up. And this concludes our flow class that kind of reviews what we've done this month. So we've done internal rotation of the hip. We did flexion and extension of the lower back with rotation of the upper back. And then we did some shoulder mobility and stability stuff. So this class kind of brings that all into one single flow.